Today the topic is raising vegan children, also homeschooling vegan children. And this main speaker is Kelly Posinelli, who is an animal activist and mother. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. So my children are here today, and they will do their best to sit quietly while I do this. They insisted on being here. They attended a Toronto Pig Save vigil before this, and a dinner, so they're okay. I didn't want to stand up here tonight and give you facts and statistics because I wanted to talk more about my personal experiences with being vegan, raising vegan children, and my daughter's 11, so just over what we've been through over the last 11 years. Hopefully this is typical and people can relate, but I do find that a lot of places that it's very geographical too, and experiences are more positive in some areas and not in others. So I was brought up by my father, a very meat and potatoes type environment. He didn't have very many cooking skills, so I was actually a very overweight, unhealthy child. So I didn't have many good role models, but we were brought up in a very loving family towards people and towards animals. So I've been vegan for 14 years. Is it supposed to shut up? 14 years ago, there was no social networking. The internet wasn't a very useful tool back then. There were maybe a handful of vegan cookbooks, and there was really nothing available on raising vegan children other than maybe Veg Family website, and that was very limited. There was no video services available, such as YouTube. We ordered Meet Your Meat on CD. So PETA was the only reference really for anything vegan. Even their information was very limited. This is taken from 1999. The only book that they really recommended was the Dr. Spock book. And that's just a general book on raising kids, though the doctor is a vegetarian. He does cover some vegan issues inside his book. It really doesn't cover a lot of them. So going vegan back 14 years ago was a big leap of faith. My husband and I decided together to go vegan, and what seemed like a moment of clarity. We just one day decided that was it. We're never going to exploit another creature again, and that included everything, not just our diet. We cleaned out our fridge, our closets, donated everything that wasn't vegan. Because I was told, like most people by their parents and doctors, that we needed to eat animals to get protein and consume dairy to get calcium, we were ready for the worst, figuring if we died of malnourishment, at least we wouldn't die with blood on our hands. For a good long time, we knew no one that was vegan. We didn't even know the word vegan, and I mean no one. Our families and friends thought we'd grow out of it, that it was a phase we were going through. We didn't really have any support or offered understanding. They didn't want to know why we became vegan. They didn't want to know anything that we had learned. We essentially lived in a vegan bubble, in a world that we thought we were very much alone in our views, and you can keep in mind again that this is a world where we didn't have social networking, so we really didn't know that other people thought the same way as we did. Thank goodness that social networking did become available. We found out we weren't crazy, and we probably were going to survive without consuming all those animal products. So I've wondered over the years why people can make the choice to be vegan and never turn back. Hi, Louise. While others struggle with it. I listened to Will Tuttle last summer, who wrote the World Peace Diet speak. There was one line that he said that brought everything all together for me. He said, in everyone's life, there's a point when you decide if you're going to become a protector of life or a keeper of evil. I knew that making the choice to become vegan wasn't an overnight decision, but a journey, a discovery, and a willingness to stand alone because it was the right thing to do. It also became pretty clear that if we were going to have children, they were going to be raised as vegans. Children are born with a natural compassion, love for all beings. It's the world around them full of false information, greedy companies, and egos that make them indifferent. Most kids don't associate the meat on their plate to an actual living being. And how do children have a chance to keep their compassion intact with all the multi-million-dollar marketing coming out of these companies who want you to buy into their lives? So after all the flood of information, my husband and I knew that we were going to raise our children, if we were going to raise them, they were going to walk the journey of being vegan from day one. It wasn't easy, I have to be honest, but this was 14 years ago when raising vegan children was considered extreme. It was depriving them of a normal childhood. It was segregating them. Because most didn't know they could get their protein and calcium from other sources other than meat and dairy, there was always a fear that you were going to be found out and you were going to be charged with child neglect. Luckily, we have evolved and educated ourselves since then. So I envy the resources that parents have today. You can walk into a local supermarket and choose from many different products, and it's just as easy to fall into unhealthy vegan eating habits as it is any other diet. There is a vegan food pyramid that is available to help anyone in the transition. We now have numerous books, blogs, videos, restaurants that cater to being vegan. It's never been easier right now to raise your children as vegans. But it's also the parents' responsibility to make sure that the child's diet is properly balanced in nutrition. I mean, we don't just eat vegetables. We have to pay attention and make sure that they get everything that they need, obviously. So we want to do our research first, right? So I have two children, a boy 8 and a girl 11, both raised as vegans from pregnancy. They've never had any health issues, none of the common earaches or allergies. They seldom get cold, and if they do, it runs for maybe a couple of days. It doesn't really amount to much, as opposed to children who are really generally sick for weeks that are not vegan. They've never been overweight and they've never been underweight. They were a part of the school system up until 2 years ago when I removed them for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was my daughter was being bullied for being vegan in school. She was in grade 3. The school knew and did nothing about it. And I couldn't accept that. So I took it myself to do something about it. There is a great deal of propaganda as well given in the schools to these kids, made to show happy animals going to slaughter. And they're told very early on, and they learn very early on, that they need to eat animals to live. I find it very difficult to fight such a level of ignorance and disrespect, and I did address certain issues with school council. They were completely ignored. You would think in a multicultural country such as Canada that there would be at least an attempt to understand differences, but I found zero tolerance for anything considered out of the ordinary. Now, these are my experiences, they're not everybody's, and my kids did go to a Catholic school, so I don't know if that had any kind of influence on that. So becoming vegan involves educating yourself. It goes hand in hand. There's a substantial amount of false information or false truths told to children from parents that don't know any better, and of course the companies that exploit the animals. And I've never sugarcoated the world to my children. We have never wavered from the truth, no matter how difficult it was for them to hear it or us to tell it. And that's on all topics. Because of the way I've been raising my children, I see them as growing up to be strong people, capable of understanding the world around them, not feeling helpless, to want better in their life than the mess that is being left behind for them by large companies and greedy governments. They know they don't have to follow the rules. It's okay to ask questions and think for themselves, that not everyone has their best interest in mind. Now, I'm saying all this, and I can tell you I wouldn't change a moment of this journey so far. I value every step and every lesson learned. And that is my son, just want to point out right here, at his first circus protest. And he stood right in front of there and made me so proud. I am their educator. I don't censor the information that they get. They are taught to respect people and their choices, but not to sacrifice their own. Soon enough, our children will be out on their own, with friends having to make tough choices without us to protect them. The best thing we can do for our children is arm them with science-based knowledge and how to be critical thinkers. Compassion and empathy has been a part of my children's life since day one in our home. We've always taught to fully respect. We've always had rescued animals that have been a part of our family, as well as sick and injured animals that we've been fostering. Jasmine, from early on, scooped up any foster she could get, no matter how mangy, and became its guardian. She has a natural ability around animals, and they trust her. One animal in particular touched our lives. Max, a 6-year-old pit bull, was starved almost to the point of death before he was rescued by an investigator. He stayed with us for almost a year, and the battle to save his life was a very difficult one. The kids cuddled Max, encouraged him, loved him, probably for the first time in his life that he's ever experienced any kind of kindness. The kids saw him go from an emaciated 30-pound underweight dog who could hardly stand to a 60-pound dog that could never stop wagging his tail. Now, not all our stories end up having happy endings like this. There were many fosters that stayed with us because no one else would take them. This was their last stop with us. They spent their last days at our home. And my kids have had to say goodbye to many of their friends. But I don't recall them ever falling apart or breaking it down when we lost a foster or a family member. They knew that we did the best we could, and we were always very honest with what was going on with that particular animal. For all the not happy endings, there are many more happy ones, and that's where we focus, not on what we can't control, but what we can. With all the resources we have at our fingertips, it's not enough to say we never knew. My daughter is 11 years old, so a bit more involved than my son is in animal advocacy. We don't pressure the kids to get involved. They decide for themselves how much they want to do. An active part is attending protests and vigils. It's always their choice if they want to attend. But we do have house rules. You can't attend a vigil or a protest unless you know why you're there. Jasmine, more than Dylan, because of their age, and has been well educated in the life of animals and agriculture from birth to slaughter, fur trapping, animals and research, and many more topics that we have explored in detail. And this is one of the chalk items that she drew on her driveway, which was actually an entire collage of different things that she had learned before when she joined Toronto Pig Save about what happens to the pigs inside quality meat packers. Last summer, we found a fantastic community of activists in Toronto, and Jasmine attended her first Toronto Pig Save Vigil. Vigils are held on the corner of Lakeshore and Strawn in Toronto, where the trucks on their way to quality meat packers stop at a long red light. We stand on what we call Pig Island to bear witness to the animals on their way to slaughter. This girl has looked into the terrified eyes of many animals. Does it traumatize her? No. Does it sadden her? Yes. Why? Because it should. It's unfair that these beautiful creatures she considers her friends are born as a commodity void of any of the basic rights of life. The animals on these trucks are no different than her dog or her cat to her, and she knows where they're going and what will happen to them. So she stands strong on Pig Island because she wants to stop the trucks, and she knows that won't happen unless we do something about it. Now, I've been told that I shouldn't be showing my children these horrors of the world, that they should just be allowed to be kids without a care. And what I say to that is, why would I do my children such an injustice? This is more than finding out there is no Santa Claus. What they know empowers them. Rather than feeling like they are forced to live without a voice, I'm showing them they not only have a voice, but they will be heard. My son and I attended one of his first vigils late last summer. He was 7 years old. A truck full of pigs went by, and he heard a person in a car complain about the smell. He turned to me and he said, "Mom, if that truck was carrying dogs on the way to slaughter, people would be so upset. They would stop that truck and save them all." At 7 years old, he understands how the world is made to think, eat one, and love the other, and how very wrong that is. Jasmine is an animal advocate, but she's also 11 years old. There is a wonderful balance going on between campaigning for animal rights and doing other things she enjoys. She can spend the morning on the phone speaking to counselors about banning body traps and snares and working on her campaign to end fur trapping in Canada. And once she's done, spend her time calling her friends or going on a bike ride or reading a book. She humbly accepts the attention she gets, but doesn't quite understand what all the fuss is about because she thinks this is a normal part of her life. She's been raised like this. She doesn't separate it. Both kids feel like defending animals is a natural part of their life. They should be going out and protecting them. And it doesn't take away from who they are. It builds confidence to know within them they have the power to change what the world thinks. And I have the best conversations with my children by simply asking them what they think, but listening to what they have to answer. I've learned that these young people know much more than what we give them credit for, and we have a lot to learn from them. And I have never once in my life ever thought twice about raising them vegan. Now, I'm lucky that myself and my husband are both vegans, and we've raised our kids from day one. But not all families are like this. Sometimes we have parents that one of the parents is vegan, one is not. So we do have a panel tonight that we're going to address some of these issues outside of what my experiences are. Okay.
I think because we have a podcast, maybe the questioner can come up and just ask the question, and then Kelly can answer it. Is that okay? It's a little bit.
Or I can repeat it.
Or you can repeat
yeah, I can repeat it. If there are any questions. Okay, so Michael's question or comment was that someone had contacted him because there was a difference in opinions between husband and wife raising a child. One didn't want to be vegan, and one did. And I think within a marriage, there's a lot of respect needed. You're not going to always agree on the same things, but there is. And you have to respect your partner. Now, this is a huge issue because it has to do with a life change. I mean, there's no way around it. It changes who you're socializing with, where you eat. It is a lot easier for us to go out and socialize now and some places for us to go. But still, some people can't handle that change. And I have known people who have broken up their marriage. But I think there's a certain amount of compromise as well. What we do in the home may not be necessarily what we do outside. But Louise is in a similar situation. She's on the panel, so maybe she can address that more when we get up there.
Hi, I'm Lee. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Her name is Maggie. I've been vegan for 4 years. And Maggie took a little longer to transition, and my husband as well, but we're now a vegan family. And we homeschool too.
Okay, okay, Melanie.
Okay, I'm Melanie, and I have been vegan for 14 years. 14 years. We are on our 6th baby. We have 5 already, and they've all been born almost vegan. We homeschool, and that's about it.
And I'm with Melanie, yeah.
That's an appropriate response.
Okay, my name's Louise, and I have 3 boys. 2 are in their 20s, and 1 is 18. And they were not raised vegan, except for my youngest one, who was vegetarian, and then became vegan with me about 7 or 8 years ago. So I just sort of decided overnight. I did some research and decided I didn't want any more cruelty in my house, so I took all of the meat and milk and everything out of my house. I was a meat-eating, dairy-drinking person, and I got rid of it in one night. And so it was a real strain on my marriage, for sure, and my children's relationship, my 2 older boys. But we've worked it out now, and now everybody has a lot of respect for it. And my youngest son is completely vegan. He's 18.
Okay, now, does anybody here have any questions? Or I have some questions. Does anybody want to go first? Paul, do you have any questions? You mentioned a couple of them, so maybe we can. I want to ask yours because I know that you yourself are not planning to have any children, so I think that maybe that's a question of how.
Well, it just struck me when I thought about it that you all have 5 kids, or have 6 kids. The carbon footprint. One of the reasons why people don't have kids is because you don't want to bring kids into this world, but also you don't want them to contribute to the harms of the world. So the carbon footprint of your 5 kids is like basically worth equal to one child who's a meat eater, and that struck me as an interesting and important point, and just the ethics of bringing a kid into the world. I mean, if one were to do it, obviously they should be vegan for those wider considerations. That was just a thought. Maybe if you could...
Yeah, I know. And Mel and I've discussed that, and you have quite a good response to that. If you wouldn't mind sharing how you feel about raising a large family.
I mean, when you've been enlightened, you almost want to share it further on. So, and I mean, the more people you can influence, in some ways, the bigger influence you can have. So that was part of it. It was definitely part of it.
I think we raise our children, I like to think differently. So we are raising them to help the world, not take away from it. So I guess there's 2 sides to that. There's 2 sides as the world has a lot of people and we really don't need to be adding anymore. And I agree with that. But we do need more people that can help out this planet, because unfortunately we don't have many. So in a lot of ways, I mean, I was talking to my daughter one day, and I said, I don't know if anybody remembers the Terminator movie. Okay, so, and she finds out she has a son that is going to be the savior of the world. So sometimes I feel like I'm in that battle where I'm raising these troops to go out and save the world, because we really do need them. And that's an awful lot of pressure for a child. But I think that we need to take responsibility, arm them with information, and just hope that they're going to use it wisely. So the benefits behind having kids, I think it's a lot beneficial. So I wouldn't want to discourage anybody from not having them, especially when they are concerned about the environment and animal rights. So to me, I know all Melanie and Ruben's kids, and they're wonderful, and they're just kind-hearted people, and they have more, because that's the kind of people we need in this world, right?
There was also the issue of homeschooling, and I know Ruben and you've done that as well. Who else is doing it? You?
We do too, yeah.
Me as well?
Yeah. Mine were actually in the public school system, so.
And Cameron still is, right?
Yeah, he still is, yeah, and I'm amazed really how strong he stayed through it, because, you know, he's got friends pushing him to eat pizza and hamburgers, but he will not. But they really, really respect him, and I'm really glad for that. He's never been bullied. He's actually quite respected.
That was the other issue I wanted to bring up, is the pressure the kids must feel in that situation.
Yeah, he does feel a lot of pressure, but I think they realize now that he won't. He's not going to budge, and he won't have anything to do with it, and they really respect him for that. So it's kind of neat, you know.
Now,
he's influenced
are any of the kids teenagers yet in this?
Mine is Cameron's 18. He's in grade 12.
Yeah.
But he's been vegetarian always and vegan for 8 years. So even when they were having like the milk program at school and pizza, and all the kids would get like a carton of milk and a slice of pizza for lunch, he'd bring his own lunch. Bring soy milk, a chocolate soy milk. Yeah, I'm really proud of him for sticking through it, because it was tough.
I just remember I used to work on a summer camp for kids, and it was vegan. It was my first exposure to that, and the lady said she would be very upset if her children ever decided not to be vegan, and I wondered if any of you had that experience of tension in the family or with a family member, like a grandparent or a husband or anything like that.
Not in my house, because I don't allow milk or dairy in my house, so even my own family.
Bringing kids to grandparents' house, having grandparents that aren't vegan, is quite an interesting experience, because there's always the possibility that they can be feeding them things that aren't vegan. And because they don't take you seriously, they don't understand. There's not a respect there in my family experience anyway, where, they don't see it as important. So, oh well, if we miss that there's whey in that product, then, so what? What does it matter? Or why can't they have pizza? And you know what? Just having younger kids, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but parents seem to have this idea that because a child goes to a kid's birthday party that is a vegan and they can't have birthday cake, they're traumatized. And it seems silly to me. I bring the kids a cupcake. They don't even think about that. They want to go. They want to socialize with their friends, have fun. who cares if they can have birthday cake and stuff? But you know, I just remember being in situations where that was a huge thing. Oh, you're denying your child so many things, and one of them was the birthday cake at a family get-together. So, I mean, it's a big issue with me personally because my husband is Italian, and I mean, last summer they were out to a family barbecue roasting an entire pig. You know, the face, and I'm looking at these pictures horrified, and thank goodness I didn't, and ironically I was at a Toronto Pig's Day picnic the same day, and I thought, well, I'm so glad I didn't go there. It would have been just heartbreaking for me. But just the idea that they were standing around, you know, just thinking they're looking so proud of this poor thing on an open flame. It's just so, I have quite a few issues, and I have to admit that I am not as close to family members as I would like to be. They aren't necessarily because they're vegan, but I do have different views on how to raise my children. But I find that it's working, and I don't find that a lot of other people's are, so I'm going to stick to what I'm doing.
I noticed the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has a website now arguing that, you know, vegan children, it's better for their health. And then you mentioned in 1999 there was only this PETA resource. Have you noticed in recent years you're getting more support for your position or your decision?
I remember meeting Ingrid Newkirk when I was 9 months pregnant with Jasmine, and I had a dog treat company. I was making vegan dog treats, and I was actually making them for PETA, and as part of their packages that they gave to people who came out and learned about how to be animal rights people. So, and I met Ingrid, and she said to me, she said, you should write a book. There are no books available right now. So that was when I was 8 months pregnant, and it was really just, you really had to struggle to find any information. And we guessed a lot. I mean, we figured we got to get protein, we got to get calcium, but there just wasn't anything available. I honestly don't know how we survived and had two healthy kids or healthy pregnancies. My kids were 9 pounds. So, and I had no problems. But there was a struggle getting the information, and it's just developed so much since then, 11 years, and it's amazing just what's around today.
Can I ask the other panel members about their experience with the health issue, both the health of the children and also the prejudice that you might have encountered that children need to eat animals?
I think, as Kelly's already mentioned, you know, I think we all probably get some degree of pressure from family and community, and I think it's made us in a way stronger, because while we sometimes don't participate as much with those people who don't treat us with respect, or treat our decisions with respect, or treat our children with respect for their choices, we, you know, found other ways to build community amongst ourselves. So, sorry, what was your question, Paul? I've lost my train of thought.
Well, is it really the health, resources, the health of the kids on one hand, and also the prejudice that society has?
Yeah. So it's definitely there, and it's very strong. I mean, I find we bump up against it a lot, but there are so many more resources out there available now online, especially compared to when Kelly was pregnant. I mean, the Vegetarian Resource Group, they have a great parenting forum that I read on a regular basis. It's international. There are lots of great books and forums and online chat rooms where you can find support, nutritional support, social support, community. So I think once you find these resources and find your way into these communities, same with the homeschooling world, once you find your way, you find lots and lots of people in the same position, and you get the resources you need, and I mean, that's what I found in our experience. So.
Yeah, I have to just include in that not all resources are created equal.
Yeah.
You can Google a topic and get 10 different kinds of responses. You really have to look at where the information is coming from. I have my doctors that I actually like, and one's Dr. Greger. I mean, I was looking up information on B12 before I came here just to see if anything had changed, just in case we were asked a question on that. And I mean, you have to make sure, and so I actually had to email someone who did a thesis in that. and ask them for updated information, because that was the only way that I knew that it was going to be based on fact and not opinion. So whatever issue, if you're going to research something, research it in numerous sources. Don't just rely on one thing. And a lot of people just cut and paste. So you have to be careful what information that you're getting, because they just take it from the same resource and they don't really have any new information.
I just wanted to ask you, because you're pregnant now and you've had other vegan children, have you run into this prejudice the society has that the child needs animal products during that stage? Or?
Not really.
We're
kind of overpowering.
Yeah.
We've already had
People
5 really healthy
intimidated
kids.
by us, so.
How would you respond to that?
With me, deep down inside, I know what I'm doing is right, so it doesn't really bother me what other people are doing. I'm sure there's tons of pregnant women out there sitting in McDonald's drinking their Coca-Cola, and but nobody will turn an eye. As soon as you're vegan, you're supposed to be some help. We eat really healthy, we have lots of greens, and I don't even pay too much attention. All my babies are the fattest little babies you've ever seen. They're all really healthy. None of our children, they've never had a doctor. We've never gone to the doctors. One time, one of our children was sick. I got pneumonia, but that was like the 4th one way down, and it cleared up really fast. But other than that, to me, just it's the fruit of the tree. They're all really healthy. They're well behaved. They're calm. They're not.
I noticed they're very well behaved at the picnics. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty calm and just they don't get sick that often. And when they do, it goes up quickly, and I feel great. And we have midwives, and we've had almost all of our babies at home. By the end of the midwife visits at 6 weeks, they can't believe how much weight they've gained, and
were all your kids vegan from the beginning, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ruben and I went vegan back in '95.
Yeah, almost 15 years ago. So.
And our oldest is an 11-year-old. Yeah.
At the same time,
Kelly and our daughter are only 9 days apart.
Yeah, our daughters are best friends. Which is amazing. They're very similar in personality, which is kind of interesting. Very soft, gentle people.
But even with the family too, in Ruben's family, we're lucky because it's more majority rules. There's more vegetarians, not vegans per se, but there's more vegetarians than there is carnivores. So all our family get-togethers and meals end up being vegan because all the grandchildren are, and nobody will touch it. And Ruben and I are in the room, and they're like, "Oh, great, we can't put this on the table because we'll be drilled for the rest of the night." So it's a bit. We kind of. That's really opposite.
You're lucky. I mean, it's great.
It's also because I think education is part of it, and also it's been how we've lived for such a long time. So. You get, as time progresses, you get taken more seriously, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you have a good track record.
Yeah.
So
I think the longer
they just get used to this.
Once
Is how
they see
things
it's
are.
not a phase, the more years that pass, the more respect the family just start to. I mean, I don't know about your family because you're maybe in a different situation, but I have 3 brothers and all their wives, and the jokes never stop cracking jokes.
Yeah.
There's always dead animals everywhere. We tend not to participate as much in family gatherings as we did because it just doesn't feel good. But I think they're starting to. I think that's, as you said, the more time goes on, they begin to respect your choice.
I think we can make people uncomfortable sitting in the room with people that are not vegan, and they don't necessarily know how to react. So they say silly things, or they insult you unintentionally, or they just, they seem very disrespectful. And really, it is they're sitting there judging themselves, and we aren't, but they might be. That makes sense. I don't regularly give out information, but I find people very defensive. And I think it comes from them judging themselves.
I've always been intrigued about the homeschooling. How did you decide to keep your children at home? Was it before you actually thought that they were going to be vegan and it's a way of life, or how do you expect them to fit into this society, which seems to be very structured academically? And have you done any research on what is going to be next for them? I mean, I'm very I admire parents that homeschool their children. I'm full of questions.
One at a time.
Wow, that's a lot of questions, Antonia. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I don't want them to fit in with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I purposely didn't put them in school for that reason. There's actually some really good books written. Weapons of Mass Instruction is a good one to start with. And sometimes we had another friend who homeschooled as well, and at the same time she went vegan and raw, she started homeschooling. Sometimes when you have a paradigm shift in one area of your life, it triggers paradigm shifts in other areas because you kind of realize the lies here, there, and everywhere. So it does sort of fit together. I grew up homeschooled, so that it was already just the way things work. And so, but yeah, if you research, there's a lot of misinformation about education, the same way there is about food and about everything else.
Yes.
So.
I just want to speak to that too. We actually, when our daughter was born, I had it in my mind immediately that I knew I wasn't happy with the system from my own experience, and sort of that paradigm shift happened for me first. Veganism came much later. But I think if you're so inclined to question the status quo, you already have that as part of you. You're open to questioning more things. Yeah, for us, homeschooling came first and veganism came later. It was a natural progression, I think.
Yeah, my kids spent the first years of their lives. He spent 2 years in school. She spent until grade 3. So I had a good taste, and I volunteered inside the school system, and I did speak to the teachers before I removed them, and they encouraged me. They said that right now in the school system it's 80% discipline, 20% education. And so you cater your children's, I mean, this is like they group everybody in one lump and they educate them as one person, basically, where I can do individualism. So I am actually preparing my kids, for the world is better, because I'm bringing out the best in them. They're finding out who they are rather than being taught they need to blend in and be like everybody else, right? So I find out what they like, and then we use that. And I do have to learn other things as well, but I can take what they do like to do or discover that, or let them discover it themselves, and it builds confidence. Gives them it makes them love learning, and we need that. And elementary school is basically just a stepping stone. High school's different. University, they actually have entry exams for homeschoolers now, where you don't have to have the grades. You have to complete the entry exams. They do recognize that homeschooling is a valuable part of education, and that it is more common right now.
I have a thought on this. The only other, when you bring up homeschooling, it reminds me of Christians in the States doing homeschooling. And it also reminds me of the fact that David Steibel and others argue that veganism is a creed, like maybe not the same thing as religion, but it's a belief system that's strong enough that people would wish to do homeschooling and to teach values, that worldview. I mean, it just strikes me that there's a strong parallel there, except with the difference that I think that ethical veganism is a better creed than fundamentalist Christianity. But they're similar in the sense that it's a worldview that's so compelling that people would wish to teach their kids at home. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think that's key. I've seen that in veganism even just recently, where it's becoming something that affects like every aspect of your life. Even the animal rights, I used to, like, I've been vegan for 15 years, and I got involved a little bit many years ago, and a lot of the people didn't even really realize, like, they were helping out at a shelter and stuff, they didn't know what veganism even was, but they were very concerned about dogs and cats and things, and now it's sort of come full circle, and it's an integral part of it, and it's becoming big enough that it starts to influence everything in your life, and that's how it should be. That's why it's becoming a creed. That's what it should be like.
It is. It's really important that you understand and the kids understand the world around them. Though, I mean, we don't segregate them. We don't just teach them vegan things. I mean, I know everybody here, and I know their kids are absolutely wonderful. So, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they're really taught a lot of respect, and we're close families. I mean, we take full responsibilities for our children and our children's education. So we have so much hands-on in everything we do, and there's so much love within these families. You walk into Ruben and Melanie's house, and it's incredible. You can feel the love when you walk in there, and it's a beautiful place to be. And Lee and Louise, it's the same thing. They're just wonderful people. So I think it's a bonding thing. It really makes a strong family when you take responsibility. You want to raise them a certain way with what you consider the proper ethics.
Another thing, a lot of vegans choose not to have kids, and yet, you know, your experience and your example, I think, sends a positive message that maybe vegans should be having kids. Right?
I've had some people say that they're reconsidering. I mean, it's not. It's who, you know, what you do with who you have, like your children, not that the children are there. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more reason to have children that are going to help this planet and help, and then not, and sit back and just try and help it on your own. It carries over.
I think being a parent makes you a better person overall, or it can. So in that, it can make you a better vegan or a better activist, because all of your motivation is selfless in a way. Your child, I mean, raising a child is such a huge...
That's unconditional love.
You're just giving all the time. So it's never about you. It's always about the world, what you're putting out there in the world, what you're giving. And I mean, I think it just, I don't know how else to say it.
I think because you know what the real world is like, you want to prepare them so well. So when you're no longer here, you're comfortable with the fact that they can live their life, not, you know, feeling like they're going to be traumatized, overwhelmed, or we want to know that we've taken care of our children with 100% of what we have, and prepare them for their life properly. So you get all this information. It makes you really feel like it's necessary to make them strong people, because they're going to need to be.
I think it's also preparing not just your children, but let's get more of them out there. Let's get more. I find the people that should be having children aren't.
Exactly.
And the people that are having children probably shouldn't be.
All of you should be having babies.
But, you know, when we pass away, we're not here anymore. There's going to be 6 to take over, and
vegan
and be there, and you know, and hopefully they've caught the vision, and they can carry the torch, you know, and so in a way, like you said, the carbon footprint of our vegan family as opposed to a non-vegan family, and even for us. The vegans, and you know, to hold back and not have children, that you're, you know, almost doing a disadvantage to the world. I personally think. I know everybody doesn't agree with me, and a lot of people totally disagree with me.
But when you raise kids to not have fear of speaking the truth or asking questions, or not killing that spirit, not making them conform into that box, I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean, it's really, those are the people that we need in the world. So, sorry, I'm going to make myself cry.
I was going to say, you know, I'm going to step off. I would actually like my daughter to take this chair.
Getting to grow up vegan and homeschooled has been a huge privilege, because being vegan means that you're not supporting the meat and other animal industries. Because I am vegan, I've found that I rarely get sick, and when I do, it's like a breeze. And to me, being homeschooled means I can do more things than what I do in a regular school. I can do more things for animal rights, and I can learn more, concentrate, and work better.
Okay, and then how does it feel to be a part of Toronto Pig Save and stand on Pig Island?
When I stand on Pig Island, I feel really sorry for the animals who had to suffer meaninglessly. But we have done so much in my 11 years, and what keeps me going is thinking by the time I'm 40, animals will have rights.
So we've come such a long way. I mean, they're our inspiration because we think about where we were 14 years ago when vegan was it even a name, and now look at where we're at. So I can't wait until see when our kids are adults and where we're at then. I mean, we're coming so far. They like to think that we're a minority, but I don't really think we are. I think that we're a strong group of people, and we're just getting stronger all the time. And the question was, for people who don't have the option to homeschool, how best can we help our children that are vegan inside the school system prepare and handling all the non-vegan issues?
I think I was just really lucky with Cameron because he's such a strong boy, and he stuck with it all the way through. I don't know what I would have done if he'd gone off of it. I would definitely be upset. He's always been quite strong, and he doesn't bow to pressure ever. You know, he's a really strong boy, and definitely very lucky with him.
So he's quite an exceptional young man.
He is.
I mean, I think a lot of kids, would feel a lot more pressure. Or
Yeah.
they might not be able to manage at a certain age.
Yeah, I'm not sure my older boys would have been able to handle that, but he's definitely, but he's been, veg always, so
Yeah.
he's just and he's cared about animals, and I think I was just really lucky.
So Kelly, you mentioned that you took your kids out of public school, put them in homeschool because of bullying and peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody else experienced this from other kids or society with their kids?
Not at school, but I mean, you get into social situations where I think the kids feel not confused, but I think it's hard when they're surrounded by people who don't see or know what they know. And it just takes, I think, a lot of communication, a lot of support, a lot of talking about the issues. I think the more the kids know and understand, the easier it gets over time, and the older they get, and the more they understand why we live the way we live, they're able to speak for themselves. But I think when they're younger, like my daughter's only 7, and she's just now learning to sort of speak her truth. But I'm really proud of her. Like it took her a few years to go all the way, and I let her transition at her own pace. I felt a lot of pressure to make the choice for her because she was 3 when I went vegan, and I think a lot of people judged like, well, you're the parent, you should just take it all away. We had no meat in the house, but she was addicted to dairy for quite a while, and I just slowly transitioned it out because I wanted her to understand. I didn't want it to be something I did to her. I wanted to respect her. I wanted her to talk to her about it. I wanted her to understand the issues behind it. And so I think because I afforded her that respect and we had so many discussions, she's now able to stand on her own and be, when she's in a social situation, she's fine now. So it wasn't something done to her.
I admire you for your courage, Lee, because when I turned vegetarian, my daughter was 4, and I was so afraid to do something wrong to her that I told her she can only become a vegetarian when she's 30. She actually turned vegan when she was 15. But my question was, when you first told your family doctor or your pediatrician that you were going to put your daughter on a vegetarian or vegan diets, did you feel that they were trying to help you or discourage you? Because I felt that the first thing people would say to me when they would find out that I was vegetarian, I hope you didn't turn your daughter vegetarian too. It's like you turn into into something outside of the norm. So
well, we our old doctor was a bully, and I felt very uncomfortable with her, so we left her and just found a new doctor. And the first thing I said to her when I interviewed her was, we're vegan and we homeschool. If you have a problem with that, tell me now, because we're not going to get along.
I like the word interview. You interviewed me.
We did. We had a meeting before we decided to take her on as our family doctor, and that was really important to me because our previous doctor had been had not been supportive. So that was something that I didn't want to have an issue with going forward. And our new doctor, she's actually, we only go once a year just for like a checkup. We're rarely sick. But she had some understanding because she's from Egypt, I believe, and they have a period of fasting where they don't eat animal products for a certain length of time. So she was okay with it, although she still questioned me about, protein sources and the usual thing and blah, blah, blah. But it's our choice. I don't feel intimidated by her, so she's very nice otherwise. I think you just really have to know. You have to be confident. You have to go in, and it's your family. Nobody cares more about your family than you do. So, yeah.
That's when you get a new doctor.
Yeah, that's when you get a new doctor, if you can.
Or don't have one at all.
Yeah.
You don't have one for your children?
Yeah. No.
Do you see them integrating higher education at some point?
If they want to?
Yeah, totally if they want to.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll have a hard time to fit in the fact that they were homeschooled or?
Well, like I said before, I don't know if I want them to fit in. I want them to just have fulfilled lives. I think they'll have fulfilled lives, and if it means some sort of higher education or move on to anything, great. But fitting in, I don't know if I want them to just fit in.
Yeah, that's not one of our goals either. We obviously, I think all of us feel like we want our children to be happy, healthy, and successful as they define success for themselves. So, that can look all different ways. I know I'm sure we all did tons of research before we sort of embarked upon the homeschooling path, because you tend to get lots and lots and lots of questions, and the same questions over and over again.
Kind
do
of
you
like
get
veganism.
support?
Yes, kind of like veganism. So you get the same three questions over and over again. The socialization question, the higher education question.
But that's silly though, because almost homeschool kids are more socialized.
Yeah, the term homeschool doesn't really.
Yeah, we're out everywhere.
They think you're stuck in
I
a
think
little
you're actually at
cubicle,
home.
and you never leave or anything. You're just
You have so much freedom.
Yeah, there's a time where you have to stop and say, okay, we have to stay home and get some lessons done, because we're never gonna. And being a parent, you homeschooling doesn't have to mean a 9 to 3.
Yeah,
You can be like, well, we have this going on in the morning, and so and different people's lives work at sometimes different hours and stuff, and people will homeschool after dinner. After dinner is school time for them, for that particular family. Not for ours per se, but I know a lot of homeschoolers that do that. It's just different times, but we're very
social for the child too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my daughter gets very mentally awake late at night. So about an hour before bed, she gets in this very intense, focused period of, she'll start writing or talking to me or discussing, or we'll just talk about math. It's all discussion. And so I notice that's her time. And so who am I to say, well, we're going to just sit from 8 to 10 every morning and do reading or math. When we can follow our own rhythm. That is the freedom that you have when you choose this life. So yeah, it's a great way to live. It's like full of joy.
Or how do you know that that you're actually presenting your child with the material that they should be? Probably heard this before.
We have a curriculum.
You can use curriculums.
Yeah,
you can do anything you want. As far as there's not, I mean, it's like so many other things. There are kids within the system that develop at different rates, and sometimes they fall through the cracks, sometimes they do well. It's not really so cut and dry. Things can, so you allow your child to just develop sometimes at their own pace, and they actually will learn better then, because that's what they need. So you have the freedom to do that because there's not 30 other kids that have to push through the same thing at the same, so.
I don't worry about measuring and grading my child because I think it's unnecessary and I think it's damaging to her psyche. Because I know I felt when I went through the school system that all of that comparing and grading and slotting into categories and the hierarchy of where you are in the class and what level you're at, I don't think that did me any service. So you don't need to do those things. You have one-on-one or one-on-5 or one-on-2 time with your child. You learn you go with what they're interested in. You learn at their pace. I mean, you can do so much. It's completely tailor-made to your own child. You don't need to worry about following the Ontario curriculum if you don't want to follow the Ontario curriculum. In Ontario, the law is very wide open. Parents are responsible for the education of their children, so you can basically do whatever you want. There is no mandatory testing unless you want to. I mean, you can choose to do it, but as I think Kelly mentioned earlier, if you are worried about post-secondary education, every university and college in Canada has an admissions policy specifically tailored to homeschool children. Mm-hmm. It may not be published, but it's there. All of the research has been done. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of homeschoolers in Canada, in the United States, and all over the world. And believe you me, the people who homeschool their kids, there's so much. They're more interested in this topic than any casual bystander. The research has been done. It's been looked into. Tons of homeschool kids go on to post-secondary education without any issues whatsoever, and in fact excel. So it's not a particular concern of mine right now. It may have been 5 years ago, but now it's not.
I'm a little bit different because I do demand a lot from my children. I do give them assignments. I'm going to be the odd one out here because I give them assignments and believe that they need to be doing things like public speaking, being in situations where they may have to learn about a topic they may not want to learn about, because there are a lot of times in life where we're faced with situations that we just simply don't want to be in, and I think we have to have self-discipline. So I do set times during the day where we have to do schoolwork, and and they do have chores that have to get done, and Jasmine has assignments. Some are her choice, some aren't. It all depends on work, but they all lie within her interests most of the time. So with her campaigns that she's doing right now, she would normally in the school system be put in a situation where she has to do public speaking. So she'll be standing up at Pickering Town Council and speaking speaking for the banning of body traps and snares. So she has to prepare something to stand up there and speak to a council. I think that's good for her. I think she knows a lot about what it's about, and I think, and we discussed it, and she has to learn to speak to people and be in situations she may not be comfortable in. One of the assignments this year was open your own business. Give me a business plan. Tell me how you're going to market it. Because the world isn't easy for our kids to grow up in, so we need them to be critical thinkers. We need them to figure out how to do things. So I do give her these assignments, and I give Dylan assignments too, but I find Dylan is more hands-on. He's very hyper, and he can't sit still. So I give him things that you probably noticed tonight. So I give him things that he can do. He likes to build. He's very mechanical. When he was a child, he explained how the piping system worked in our house for our toilet before, and didn't know how it worked. So he can see things and build it. It's amazing to me. So I use that, and I get him to build things. Build me a bridge that I can stand on. How are you going to do it? What are you going to use? So I give them assignments and get them to do certain things. But we do have some set hours during the day. But we try to be flexible and not be so, sit down cross-legged and do this and do that. But I do make quite a bit, probably more demands on my children than maybe they do. But everybody's individual how they do it. And this is all a new thing. I mean, have we had a full generation of vegan children that have been homeschooled that you knew of? I don't know of any myself.
I know
where
some.
they've gone into adulthood.
I know some.
Do you know some?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm an adult.
Oh, well, okay, sorry. Sorry. I mean, there's not a lot I don't know a lot of them myself.
Were you always a vegan?
Well, I've been vegetarian since I was 16, and then when I was 20, I went vegan, and I've been homeschooled. They pulled me out of school when I was in grade 5. So those things all sort of happened at various times.
Carlos has a question. Go ahead.
Do you feel like this is addressed to everyone who wants to answer? Do you feel that the kids embrace our values pretty much the same way as you do, or do they ever hesitate, or they challenge you anyway because of either influence from relatives or from kids at school, or do they want to nag, or they want to get something? They say, I'm gonna do something that you don't like, or things like, why can't I eat that? I mean, do they come up do the situations come up eventually, or they're pretty much, I pretty know what I'm doing, and I understand you, Mom, and never challenge you in any regard. How does that dynamic work? I'm curious to understand.
Yeah, there were little rumblings. Our oldest is 11, and that was sort of what motivated us to get a lot more active, sort of in advocacy and activism, because we wanted them to sort of catch the vision themselves. I'm not going to waver or falter or anything. This is just how it was. But to get them to capture that, we started getting involved with the sanctuary just so that they could experience what this was really about, and that was part of why we got a lot more active, so that they could really see it from all the different angles. And now, especially our 11-year-old has really caught the vision and is very solid in herself because of those reasons. So that's why I think types of advocacy they're important for kids, to help them make those connections rather than just saying, this is what we do, don't ask questions. Mm-hmm. So that was a big part of why we do what we do, because our kids started sort of asking about things.
So there's this good joke.
I just want to know, I know that you guys show your children how really the world is. Do you guys show any videos that are explicit, like what happens in a slaughterhouse, or do you tell them a little more kid-friendly way?
I think we have 3 different answers here. And I don't know Louise as well. I think we probably have 4 different answers for you. So we'll start with, because we remember our kids are different ages too, right?
Well, okay, I'll start and then we'll just go. Yeah, so I went vegan when Maggie was 3. I've never shown her purposely any highly graphic images just because I think it's inappropriate at this particular age. But I have talked to her about what happens to animals at all stages in animal agriculture system. So we talk about it, but she doesn't have necessarily a visual to go along with that. So I think as she matures and her understanding grows, she'll just naturally get exposed to more images. I don't feel it's appropriate right now to show a child that young highly graphic films or video, but she knows on some level what happens, and she has a natural empathy that I think most, if not all, children have for animals, and does not want to see animals hurt. And she knows how we all feel about it. So that's where we're at in our stage. It will change as she grows. So.
Yeah, we kind of start a little bit with the older ones. I don't want to, like, it's not something I want to scare them into.
Yeah.
So they've watched a couple, like some, they watched The Cove, and they watched Vegucated. I have a little bit, but as far as like a lot of hardcore.
But that was their choice.
Yeah, they wanted to watch it, and we warned them there's a little bit, but they were okay. Because I think, they do want, it's like anything else, they want to know what's going on in the world, but it's not, we don't want to bombard them with it, so it's just, we just go eat.
We don't really hide it.
Yeah.
But the Cove came about, we were going to Marineland protests, and our oldest daughter was very curious about it, and it so happened at the same time there was a free, on TV, a documentary of the Cove playing. Just so happened as we were in the discussion, and I found out, 8 o'clock tonight, the Cove is on. We do like a break in the middle. We try to like stop and do a washroom break where anyone that would like to leave, or they're free to leave at any time. It's not like, okay, we're sitting down watching the whole thing. We ask them throughout repeatedly, are you okay with this? Do you understand? Would you like to turn it off? And we can talk about it. And so we just kind of take it like that, but it's all, they're asking, we're about to watch, they wanted to watch Forks Over Knives and some stuff. And so we just try to take it easy with them. It's totally up to them. We don't push anything on them, but we're not going to hide anything either. It's the truth, and it's there, and so we just kind of leave it up in their hands, and we try to be very gentle and careful guiding them through those visual images. But if they're ready for it and they would like to, and we talk about it after, and it is a sad thing that is going on out there. We, like I think Kelly mentioned earlier, it's like we've never told our kids Santa Claus was real either.
Yeah.
But,
Mine's sort of different because my two older boys are older. So, they've watched a lot of the videos of like nature and that sort of thing. And they find it really horrifying. And my youngest son, Cameron, he's seen quite a few of them too, but he just stopped looking at it because he said, that's enough, I don't need to see it anymore. So he's already vegan. But I'm still working on my two older boys. They're not vegan outside of the house. Yeah, and my son Greg, my 23-year-old son Greg, came to his first Toronto Pigs Vigil. So he wants to come back for sure. So that's a good start for sure with him. I think he's on his way there. And Cameron's been out too.
I guess I'm a bit different, so I don't know, maybe it's because of the way I've been raised. I've always been fully into animal rights, and I've always been determined to change the world. So with my daughter, and it's individual, so what I've done with my daughter, I've not necessarily done with my son. We're talking about two incredible differences in maturity. But my daughter and we do this together. I don't consider myself taking her to vigils. We go together. I don't consider her protesting with me. We're protesting together. She's not coming along. She has seen a fair amount of detailed videos, including some of Earthlings, because with me, it's about knowing what's happening and being able to understand why you're there. She's seen documentaries, Maximum Tolerated Dose. She's seen, she was in The Ghosts in Our Machine. She's seen Vegucated. She knows how leather is made. She knows she's seen animals that have been strung up with their throats cut. I take it in steps so we don't sit down and go, it is a discussion. And I ask her, okay, you ready? This is going to be, this what to expect and everything. And I watch her, and then we have lengthy conversations after about how she feels, because I also don't want to desensitize her. She stands in front of the trucks for Toronto Pig Safe, and she looks into the eyes of these animals. She knows full well what they're going to go through. She's been to Toronto Cow Safe as well. So we go to sanctuaries, we balance it out. But, I mean, yeah, she's seen a lot, probably more than a lot of people have. I think she needs to know. I think a lot of kids need that kind of honesty. Maybe some aren't ready for it. She is. And if she's not, she'll let me know. She has not seen, she's seen an animal trapped in a fur trap, in a body trap, in a conibear. What happens to them? But has she seen the animal once the trapper comes to remove get the pelt? No. So, I mean, I like to think that I balance what they've seen. But I don't want to be looking back on this going, oh shoot, I wish I told her. Because when she's out there wanting to fit in with her friends and someone wants to go to McDonald's and offer her a burger, I want her to know where that burger came from. I really want her to know. And I think that the most powerful thing we can do is put ourselves in the animal's position, and we can't do that unless we know what they've been through. So that's just my take. I don't think that every child can go through that. But I think she just seems to be right there and being willing to learn and understanding what's going on and making sense out of it. But I am very careful at the same time that I don't overwhelm her. So I guess I'm a little bit different.
I don't think it sounds that different from what we've all been saying, really. I
Yeah.
think we all sort of respect each of our individual children and who they are and where they're at in their stage of growth and development. So I think
you know when they're ready.
Yeah.
I think if she was crying and falling apart, it would be different. But we kind of we go a little bit and then we give them a little bit more. And really, we don't repeat the same information over and over again. Because like I said, we don't want to desensitize them, right? But to have a good understanding of why they go to a protest, I think is good. So if someone asks them a question, I'd like to know that she can answer them why she's there. And that's pretty much the reason for it. And I think that if she wants to go where they want to go, then they should know. They should be willing to understand.
Is it possible to hear from Jasmine?
She did make a comment about the Toronto Pig Safe Vigils. I find her inspiring when she's there, honestly, because she's a tough girl. I mean, I wonder when she gets home, we talk about it. I mean, when we first started to go to vigils, I'd be crying all the way home. I couldn't believe it. I felt so helpless. But she's positive. She's like, Mom, don't worry. We're going to get this. It's amazing. And I believe her because, I mean, I look at this is what we're doing. This is who we're bringing into the world. This is what hopefully is going to be making the changes. So she keeps me going. She inspires me to do more. Sounds silly, but it's true. But she's amazing at the vigils and stuff. And she did say something earlier.
There's a question at the back. This question is for Louise. You mentioned that your two older sons did not go vegetarian or vegan when your youngest one did. What do you think was the difference between the approach you used or their reaction that made one transition and the other not?
Well, I think it was when I went vegan because there's a big gap between my two older boys and my younger one. So actually my youngest son was always vegetarian. He never wanted to eat meat, and I never ever forced him to. He thought it was disgusting. And then actually one day we were talking about animals, and because I've always loved animals and stood up for animals and rescued animals, and I said, I don't like eating them either. And he said, well then why are you eating them, Mom? Right? And I was like, yeah, why am I eating them? So actually he was about 7 or 8 years old then. And he was vegetarian, and we went vegan together that day.
Aww.
Yeah, so we took all the meat and dairy out of the house. But my two older boys were 16 and 15. So it was really hard to, like at that stage, to, I mean, they didn't eat meat at home because I wouldn't allow it. From that day, it was like, it was overnight. It wasn't gradual, it was overnight. And so it was hard to get them to stop outside of the house, but in the house, they were vegan. My son Greg, who's still at home, he's 23, he still wants to be completely vegan, and he's actually, we talked about, he came out to our Toronto Pig Safe Vigil, and so yeah, and he saw a ghosting machine just recently.
And he's a very, yeah, he's in touch. He's a great, she has fantastic sons, and I think his girlfriend is going to be a very sensitive girl, and I know that she's a big influence. Yeah. It helps when you have support. You know, it's when both partners are thinking the same way, or even walking the same path. You know, they're discovering it together, and it's good to have that support because, you know, it's scary. It can be scary. It's nice when you don't do it alone.
Anita has a go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you've experienced like aspects of the model of homeschooling that you're developing. So in your child, if you experienced it, or where do you get your inspiration from? And obviously you get inspiration from each other because you're really inspiring to us. But I'm just wondering, do you have, I mean, Tolstoy, for example, like in the era that he lived in the 19th century, a lot of people had governances and they got very individual schooling. But he took it upon himself to educate his children himself, and he wrote a book called ABC. He spent years on it. And it's interesting because that was a model for the wealthy back then that could take the time to, you know, teach their children on an individual level. So I'm just curious if you've experienced some very inspiring types of education, like were your parents good models, or where do you get your inspiration from?
I didn't homeschool. My kids were in the public school system, but I wish I had.
I think I don't have any one model in particular. I think when I got the idea originally from reading about attachment parenting, and the term unschooling was introduced to me, and I just began to read and research, and I found forums online, I found networks of people, and I began reading. I read for about 2 or 3 years on the subject, and then the stories that I heard from other parents just inspired me about how their children sort of grew free from all of the things that, you know, I didn't love about being educated in the system. So I think my confidence just has grown over time as a parent and as a homeschooling parent, and seeing my own child blossom, having that freedom. So there's no one person that inspired me. I think it was just the community in general, being connected to other homeschooling families, and seeing their kids grow and be great people. So that's all for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the culture, so
yeah.
My parents obviously a big influence, but then I did read a lot of things for myself. John Holt,
sorry.
Even John Taylor Gatto, a whole bunch of, and so yeah, I was thoroughly convinced as a teenager that it was the way to go, and so then it was just a natural choice for my kids.
Yeah, I read lots of books too. John Holt, he's a great author who sort of started the movement of unschooling, I guess, or he was a teacher who, I guess, tried to work within the system and failed. He wrote a lot of books. Some of the ones that I read that I enjoyed were Why Children Fail and Why. No, what? I'm really bad with names. He wrote 7 or 8 great books about homeschooling, and I can.
Ruben's listing them all off.
No,
Okay.
I think I've only read 1 or 2.
I don't know what you've read that inspired you, but I've got a ton of them at home. I just can't remember any of the titles right now. Sorry.
Actually, we might be able to include that maybe as a resource that Paul can include.
Sure. And John Taylor Gatto too. Yeah, he's another educator who he wrote
Dumbing Us Down.
Dumbing Us Down. Yes, about the education system. Yeah. I don't look very smart right now.
And we're homeschoolers, all right.
Nobody has sitting beside the homeschooler.
No, it was a big
all
part
went to
though
school, that's
of the paradigm shift, and then that because my parents taught me to think for myself from a very young age. That's why at 16 I just, without knowing any other vegetarians or ever even having met one, I just decided it was something I wanted to do because I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And so that it sometimes when you are able to step out of sort of a system that just tells you how to act and what to do, it gives you the freedom to do those things and just make your own decisions and stands, and that's sort of how I grew up.
I also noticed that, as you've mentioned a few times, you've opted out of the allopathic medical system.
Yeah.
And that seems to be another dramatic step.
Well, part of when not knowing any other bit or knowing anything about vegetarianism, you get a lot of questions, and a lot of the education I did for myself. There is a huge vegan health movement, and I got into a lot of that. Was raw for quite a while and sort of educated, and a lot of that. Same thing, you start to uncover some misconceptions about the sort of medical system, and there's a lot of the same sort of thing. They tell you what they want you to hear. I mean, it does mix in all. I mean, if you get into some of the education, it sort of crosses over into why we should just eat what we should, and they're all sort of part and parcel. So yeah, I sort of threw that out as well.
I mean, not going to doctors would seem to some people to be a dramatic move. I myself don't go to a doctor, so I understand you, but maybe you can explain why you don't think it's useful.
Just the similar thing. I mean, taking things into your own hands, like in your own health, in taking and standing up. The same thing as going vegan or taking your own education into your own hands, rather than just letting somebody else tell you what they think you should think.
Yeah.
So it's all, to me, it's all the same thing.
I mean, also the pharmaceutical industry is so damaging as well, and that's what they're trained in. So we're at 1:45. If there are anybody else who has questions or thoughts for the panel, if not, we can. Anybody? If not, we'll just let each panel member have a final say, and then we'll conclude. How about that? Starting with.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, but I'm the talker of the bunch.
That's the last.
I don't know. I think I started off by sharing some of my experiences through becoming vegan and raising vegan children. So I think I've said quite a bit tonight, and I generally do have a lot to say. But I mean, I love that we are raising our children, and I don't think that we're raising them with compassion. We're just not taking it away. It's beautiful. We're tight. It's exciting to me that we have wonderful people that we're sharing all this with. So, I mean, I love what we're doing. I wouldn't change anything. And I don't mind that it's a bit rough at times. And I'm hoping that, in 10 years, my daughter is going to be sitting up here and is going to be doing something similar about explaining how she was raised up vegan and why she's where she is in a big voice. So we'll see how it goes. Awesome.
Well, I'm pretty happy with my situation too. The only thing I wish I had done differently, but I didn't know at the time, was raise them from birth as a vegan. But I didn't even know what a vegan was then. So, but otherwise, I'm really happy because I think just a vegan home is more loving and compassionate, and it's beautiful. It really is. I'm just so happy with my voice.
Yeah, no, this is just how we live, and I think part of what we're trying to do is just create almost a culture where these become the norms. This is how these children are brought up in these situations, and not having to sort of get that all out of their head. And that's what we're trying to do, is just bring this up as this is the normal way to do it, and for the future generations.
And I just remembered something I wanted to say earlier, was that I think there was a question or a comment out there saying about how are your children responding with other children, even times like Halloween or whatever about that. Right now it seems to be there's a lot of children out there with allergies, peanut allergies, dairy allergies, this and that. So when our kids are like, no, we don't eat any any dairy, any meat. We're vegans. The other kids are so used to other children not being able to, and they can't bring peanut butter to school, or they can't this, or somebody's allergic to bananas, or anything that it's never really a problem. It's more like, you mean you don't go to school? You mean never? Is more the shock than what you eat or don't eat. It's not really an issue. I remembered to say that.
Oh, so much to say. Anyway, I think I'm just really looking forward to seeing my child grow in a way that she's free to just be who she is, and I just love her. I don't know what else to say.
We're all excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, I am excited. I'm excited about what she's going to bring to the world, and in a way that's different than the way I was raised. I think it's a great opportunity. I think our kids are going to be, they're all incredible already, so I'm just really excited to see what happens, see how they transform the world. Yay.
Right. Well, I want to thank everybody, the parents for coming today, and the kids too, and the people filming it as well. Thank you all for coming, and big hand to Kelly for organizing it.
Thank you.